What's up, everybody? It's the Junkyard Dawgcast. I'm Jake Rowe with Dogs 24/7. He's Rusty Mansell, also from Dogs 24/7. And Kip, he's kind of on assignment right now. Hopefully, we'll have something.
He's coming in.
Kip's working on something, a little something on the recruiting side. Actually, I think he just kind of go ahead and gave me the go ahead. Just got a text from Sean Washington, a defensive tackle. He's a 3-star kid, but he's got 5-star offers. It just committed to Georgia, 6'3", 6'4", 280 to 300 pounds. Let's talk about him for a second.
6'3" and 7'8", 302 pounds a couple weeks ago in Athens. So that is what I was told. This is a guy that Georgia worked out twice this summer, or they worked him out and had him on campus. So they have visited with him. They have worked him out, more importantly. So that was a guy they kind of coveted, a big body guy. And, as the year went on, it became more kind of apparent that he was going to be a Georgia Bulldog in the last couple of weeks for sure.
Powerhouse High School there in Louisiana too, right? Warren Easton High School.
Yep. Big one. Warren Eric's, Cedric Van Pran from there. Get all my names run together.
Warren's, dude.
Everybody's asking, did we go live? Is Rusty Cristobal on a punter? Did we actually go live this time? So,
yeah,
it's they're getting to get your shots in right now while we can do it.
Funny story about Warren Easton High School, man. I was, obviously I was down in New Orleans. Felt like, I think it was like 3 times in a span of 14, 15 months with LSU, Georgia playing in 2 Sugar Bowls. I had an Uber driver that he was like, "Hey, why are you in New Orleans?" And I told him, and he was like, "Oh man, I went to Warren Easton High School. You ever heard of it?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of it." And he was like, "Yeah, man, we put out mad talent," he said. And he was right. I mean, it's like every year, there's a couple of them, a couple of big time players coming out of there. Just that whole area, there's a couple of high schools that are just stacked year after year. And we'll see which LSU coach gets a chance to take care of that. Lincoln Riley off to USC. You've been listening to that all day. Sounds like LSU's targeting Brian Kelly. But, hey, that ain't our lane, Rusty. Our lane's Georgia, and Georgia's 12-0. Georgia's ranked number 1 in all 3 facets of the rankings, however you want to look at it. College football playoff, AP poll, coaches poll. And they got Alabama coming up. And, listen, I don't think we need to waste any time talking about what happened against Georgia Tech. You said it best. Georgia could have scored 70 if they wanted to. And if Tech would have, I don't know, tried to run a real offense and let them, they were trying to get out of that game, it seemed like, from the first snap. But early thoughts on this Alabama game, man, like just because what I'd like to do, man, is I'd like to talk Georgia-Alabama today. I'd like to get into mailbag tomorrow, and then I'd like to talk Georgia-Alabama again on Thursday, and then whoever gets it after the game Saturday can get it. But early thoughts, just what are you thinking super early in this week?
I think I'm thinking what I've been thinking for a year now and 2 years now is Georgia needs to beat Alabama in that building. I mean, this is round 3 in that building, and Georgia has done everything except win the game, and that's all that matters. I mean, Georgia fans know exactly how Auburn fans feel this past weekend to have Alabama down and out and not beat them. So, you're gonna slay a dragon, so to speak. You got to finish it off. And Kirby Smart has done so much at the University of Georgia the first 5 years. Incredible recruiting classes, all these big wins. He needs to beat Alabama and needs to beat them in this game, and they need to win the SEC championship, because if you win the SEC championship, all your other goals are in place. So this is another big step. And I think there was some bumps in the road, obviously, for Alabama, and Georgia's had a pretty smooth path by playing elite all year. But I think everybody, Jake would probably agree with me, that everybody saw this one's coming. This one was coming in December at some point, and nobody wanted to talk about it from the football side on those side, but from the media side and what we do for a living, I think we all felt like this was coming. And here we are, Saturday at 4:00. It's Georgia and Alabama in Atlanta for the SEC championship.
It's exactly what I picked on my SEC Media Day ballot. That's for sure. I had it going, and I actually had Georgia winning the league for different reasons than this team being what it is now. It was coming off that SEC Media Day thing. I was just really impressed with JT Daniels. And I thought that Georgia was going to kind of get it clicking there. And then all of a sudden, Georgia gets beat up in preseason camp. And they get beat up as the season goes along. And bumps in the road, you mentioned that. They come in different forms. And Alabama's has been kind of having to work through some on-field stuff and execution stuff and offensive line stuff that maybe they didn't expect to have to deal with. Georgia's had to deal with injury after injury after injury. And, Rusty, they're dealing with them right now. They're dealing with the injuries right now. So let's dig into this situation for a little bit. And let's go one by one because we're here for a little bit. Jamari Sawyer, what are you thinking as far as that big fella? Because I tell you what, you and I talked about this morning before I walked into that building for those interviews. I have a slightly different opinion now than I did then because Kirby said he was going to practice today. And, if Kirby gives you the day-to-day tag, you're in trouble, okay? But if Kirby says, fine, he's practicing, he's doing this, then –
it's also Bama week.
Right, so. True. But – the fact, I don't know. I don't know. What are you thinking about Jamari?
We don't know to the extent that injury is, but here's what is tough on a big man. An injury like that is weight bearing. And it's different if you're Arian Smith with an ankle type injury than Jamari Sawyer, who's a big man. That's a lot of weight on there. So I'll be interested to see where he is at the end of the week. Because here's the thing. And Georgia fans know this going into this game. Will Anderson might be the best defensive player in the country. And he is one of the most dominant pass rushers in the last 3 or 4 years in college football. I mean, this guy is a straight-up freak now. This kid grew up a Georgia Bulldog fan, so don't think that he's not going to have an extra gear ready to rock on Saturday when he plays Georgia in this game. So you start talking about that out on the edge, and I'm not sure that 60 or 70% Jamari Sawyer is your best option. So
right.
I know
agree with that.
I know this. Jamari Sawyer came back to Georgia to play in games like this, and he is a tough son of a gun. How athletic can he be on the edge? Are they going to go with Broderick Jones and obviously Warren McClendon over there? We'll talk about this more, but I also think you're going to see a lot of Darnell Washington lined up, attached to the end to help there because you're talking about a big 6'8" guy too that can move his feet. And this is what tight ends do. Sometimes they have to block. And for a guy like that, we got to figure out how to, if you're Georgia, you got to figure out how to keep your eye on him because you have to know every single player well in it. He is the best. To me, in my opinion, he's the best defensive player in college football. He's a freak.
Well, Jordan just sent us a little message here in the chat, Rusty. Pete Thamel over at, I believe, Yahoo Sports is tweeting that Brian Kelly is official to LSU. So Brian Kelly comes into the SEC.
How about a crazy? I mean, just Lincoln right, and obviously we're getting a lot of text here, and people reporting Mike Bobo is out at Auburn, and I'm not sure that that's. I believe it, So we'll talk about more of that. I will say this: that don't know where Mike Bobo is going to end up, but I know this: that Mike Bobo played Alabama this weekend, and he and Kirby Smart are extremely. Oh yeah, they are extremely.
That was my first thought.
They're very close. So don't think for a minute they're not going to have a lot of conversations this week on this game plan. Probably would have anyway, but I'm sure they're going to have a few extra conversations.
Yeah. Definitely some note comparisons there, some talking there. Not like Auburn actually lit up the scoreboard against them, but, just that intel, just kind of that maybe the nugget that you didn't think of, whatever you didn't think of will be there. And sure, Mike will land on his feet. We'll see where. Let's talk about another injury, Rusty. Chris Smith. My take on this one is this, Rusty. Kirby said he ran some yesterday, but didn't seem to know whether or not he'd practiced today. I saw Chris Smith walking around. I had two different opinions. I saw him walking around on the field before the game Saturday while the team was stretching. He was walking around pretty good, pretty smoothly, looked all right. Then I watched him jog out of the tunnel, and he had a little hitch in his giddy up there. And I don't know, he might have been wearing a really restrictive wrap on his knee. I've seen a gray one that some of those players wear, and I don't know if that caused some stiffness. He was wearing pants. It was cold. I didn't feel that great about it at that point about Chris Smith playing, but I feel like, Rusty, that's the biggest, question mark as far as what Georgia's dealing with right now. I mean, you look at Jamari Sawyer, Kendall Milton, even Kearis Jackson. but Chris Smith is the one guy. If you had to pick one of those guys to be 100%, it'd have to be Chris Smith, right?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the back end and what Alabama presses you with their receivers. Jameson, obviously, Jameson Williams, number one, is a guy that's, he knocks the top off of it. He's a guy that, that was a big piece of the puzzle, not playing against Auburn. You saw them struggle a little bit without him. So, always go back to the 2019 SEC championship game or 2018 SEC championship game. I mean, you've talked about this many times. Georgia tried to substitute Mark Webb for Tyreek McGee in every third down passing play they could get. And they didn't get him twice. And once they gave up a touchdown in the back of his end zone, and Tyreek McGee was all over Jalen Waddle. He just didn't have enough length. So when you look at the back end and you look at somebody like Chris Smith and what his job and what his duty is, I mean, he needs to be ready to roll, and he needs to be 100%, in my opinion, or they'll go with Dan Jackson, a guy that can run as well.
Yeah, and it might be a situation where Chris Smith can give you a handful of snaps or maybe come in on dime. I think what I think happens here, though, Rusty, is I think, this is based off a little bit that I've heard. I think that what's going to happen for Georgia is if they go 6 defensive backs and Chris Smith can't play, Dan Jackson's going to stay at safety, Latavius Brenny's going to stay at nickel, and you'll probably see Amir Speed come in at dime. And that'll kind of be the way Georgia deals with that. But then it's paper thin at the safety position at that point. I mean, you're one snap away from having to play Javon Bullard or maybe William Poole, who is a fifth-year guy and has played a lot of ball and looked pretty good against Tech.
They did.
So that's kind of where Georgia's at in the secondary right now. Not a great place.
I think that what Georgia showed against Florida, what I call the big nickel with Trayvon Walker and Jalen Carter and all four of those guys in at one time, it would not surprise me at all to see a lot of that Saturday.
Yeah.
You got to have big on big with this group.
Yeah, for sure. And, Alabama's offensive line struggled, and we're going to get into that and kind of that matchup that, just go ahead and preview that matchup after the break. Rusty, it's not my style. It's not your style to just sit here and point to Alabama and say, man, they're bad right there, but they're kind of bad on the offensive line. They've really struggled. I mean, I know Evan Neal's a stud, but otherwise it has kind of been shaky for them. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I've watched a lot of it, and I'm kind of shocked at how shaky it looks.
If I'm Georgia, I'm staying up at night worrying about Will Anderson. If I'm Alabama, I'm worried sick about Jordan Davis and our interior guys. I'm worried about our interior guys versus Devontae Wyatt, and I'm worried about our interior guys versus Jalen Carter because they had problems with Auburn. And not knocking against Auburn, but you're talking about maybe 3 potential first-rounders right there when it's all said and done. And Evan Neal is a big-time, I think, first-round NFL talent left tackle. They're struggling a little bit at right tackle. So, I mean, if I'm Alabama, I'm worried to death right there, especially in the interior, blocking those guys and protecting because, that's where the matchup I think is a lot different than it was the 2 other games in the Dome. Looking at, those games, broke those down a little bit today. So if I'm Alabama, I'm worried sick about those matchups.
And the thing that I really point to as well is, all right, Georgia's not a one-trick pony when it comes to getting after the quarterback. I mean, you look down the roster. Look how many different guys have 2, 3, 4, 5 sacks on the year. There are a lot of them. That cross dog blitz Georgia runs with the inside guys, and I don't know how nobody has figured out how to handle it. I'm sure there's different variations of it, and those interior guys commanding the attention they command as a part of it. But the thing where this matters the most to me, Rusty, is if you've got Trayvon Walker or Nolan Smith or Robert Beal coming off the edge, and they flush Bryce Young up into the pocket, you're kind of going into the belly of the beast at that point because it's really tough to hold blocks on Devontae Wyatt, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, even Nas Stackhouse if he comes in the game. There are some really good players up there, and yeah, it's not, to me, it's not the matchup that Clemson was. I'm not saying Alabama's got the worst offensive line Georgia's played all year. I think they've played a couple, 2 or 3, 4, maybe, significantly worse. But it's not the Alabama offensive line, definitely not the one we saw last year, that, they had an 11-minute drive in the fourth quarter and just kind of ran it down Georgia's throat. Rusty, when you combine it with the fact that Brian Robinson's dinged up and may not even be able to play, and by the way, absolute man-child warrior. Listen, I know Alabama's had more talented running backs. They haven't had any that play the game any harder than he does.
Yeah, physical.
And he's accounted for 1,300 yards this year, 29 catches for 200-something yards, almost 1,100 yards rushing. That's a big blow for them. And then you consider the offensive line. They're going to have to patch some things together, but what staff would you trust more to patch something together?
Well, you look at Alabama and what they've done successfully last couple of games when they've had to score. It's been Bryce Young extending plays, getting outside the pocket. And no offense to Arkansas, what a hell of a year Sam Pittman, those guys had, but their linebackers are not what Georgia has.
No,
and he just ran and made plays. He gave Auburn some fits, especially late in that game when they needed to score a 97-yard drive. He makes a great throw on third down. And he was stepped up in the pocket. So, that tells you that he's running under pressure. So can Georgia keep him inside? And when he does get in space, can they get him to the ground? Because he's not the biggest kid at all, I promise you. I was surprised, 2 things, when I met Bryce Young. I spent a whole week with Bryce Young. How short he is and how freaking hard that ball comes out of his hand. That ball jumps out of Bryce Young's hand. Great kid, extremely smart. He's small, but he's getting it done. And if he gets up in the pocket and gets extended on the play, he'll hurt you. He hurt Auburn ultimately in the end.
Yeah, I did a radio spot today, and somebody was talking to me about how you could rattle him. And I said, I don't think that's the right word. I think play to play, you pressure him and you make him less effective. But if you sack him on this play, he's not going to be rattled on the next play.
Yeah,
I've seen enough of him this year playing LSU, playing A&M, playing against Arkansas and Auburn, that kid flushes it quick, and he's a special football player. He's got a couple special guys to throw it to. And that, to me, Rusty, I don't know if you see it this way too, is I see the matchups. I see where Georgia is strong in areas that Alabama is maybe a little bit weaker, but that dynamic, Bryce Young, those receivers, that's what makes me think that, hey, Alabama may be an injured cobra, but it's still a cobra, and those fangs are still pretty sharp.
Yeah. Again, you can say all these things, Jake. You're a competitor. You've been on, different sides of it as playing and even as a coach, in a time. There's something in your head that you got to go ahead and you got to get past this game. You got to finish them. You've got to finish Alabama in that building. And I really believe if they can finish Alabama in that building, it could knock the top off of this program for Georgia, because that's the one thing that's been holding them back is Alabama. And they've beaten everybody else for most part. But they've got to beat Alabama, and they got to beat them in that building, because every game they played in that building has been very meaningful. And this one on Saturday will be the same way.
And you look at it, Rusty, I've said this a few times. Georgia's probably the better team, definitely the better team on paper, more complete team on paper, less holes.
6.5 point favorite.
Yeah, 6.5 point favorite.
Oof.
But you add that. When I went into the 2017 game, Rusty, you talk about this, and I agree with you. We were in that big room where they bring the players in, and you could tell Alabama was the bigger, more athletic football team.
Phillips Arena, Saturday morning. I'll never forget.
Yeah, they were a massive group of grown men. Okay, 18. I didn't know how Georgia was going to win that game. I thought Georgia could if it went out there and played out of its mind and got some breaks, and they were in it for 4 quarters and into overtime. 2018, I kind of had the same feeling. I don't know if this Georgia team can beat them. I think they can. We'll see if they can play and do it. Last year, going into Bryant Denny Stadium, this year you kind of expect it, right?
Yeah,
that dynamic has shifted a little bit, but I still think the mentality in a lot of ways is the same. Is that chip on your shoulder, maybe a little bit of underdog, maybe David versus Goliath. esque. I'm not saying that's the way they look at it, but I think when you combine those two things together, you've got an opportunity to maybe do something big. I just don't know if they can channel it the right way, but it's a very interesting thing to have the better team, but almost feel like the underdog.
Yeah, it's true. And again, it's a mental thing. I mean, I really think there's a lot of Georgia fans that are probably going, yeah, I can't wait to play them. Oh God, I can't. Saturday's going to be there's going to be a lot less fingernails in the parking lot come Saturday. But Georgia, this is Kirby Smart's team. Other than Julian Rochester, he's recruited every single one of these players.
Hey, he signed Julian.
He signed Julian. He did.
Yeah.
So it's crazy that guy's still playing. But this is his team. And Kirby said from day one, the first press conference that Kirby Smart said at University of Georgia is, we have got to get bigger. And it took him 3 or 4 classes, and they have got depth. They've got bigs. They got guys that can run. Everybody's a little banged up right now. Georgia's got some injuries, but getting George Pickens back was a big deal. We'll talk about that as the week goes on. But
yeah,
Jake, I think you're 100% right. Georgia's the better team. Can Georgia be ahead at the end of the game on Saturday, Mercedes-Benz? That's going to tell a lot about this program, where they're at.
3,600 seconds, man. You got to play every single one of them. Because, listen, if you want to talk about the strength of Alabama's football team, we can talk about passing game and all that stuff. I watched them play Florida, play, all these close games. You got to, and I've watched them beat Georgia 3 times and 2 times taking it kind of down to the wire. You got to play every single second to beat them. And that's what Georgia's going to have to do. By the way, you talked about the big people thing. Rusty Jordan Davis comes in to talk to us today. And those banners they have behind us, kind of like this one I got back behind me right here. They was on a stand. Jordan walked over there to it and just grabbed it like this right here. Eyes just barely below it, and picks it up and takes it up a rung before they do it. Giant man.
I tell you, I had a chance to talk with him a little bit this summer at a charity golf tournament. And N'Kobe Dean was driving the golf cart. And when Jordan sat beside him, he's poor N'Kobe. There was barely enough for him to move his arms to be able to drive because those shoulders sit down. And it was funny watching. You should have seen him trying to swing a golf club.
Air pressure.
Oh my goodness, man!
That golf cart went straight to the maintenance shed when it was over.
N'Kobe, JT Daniels, and Jordan were in a group in front of us. And funny, JT Daniels, he's not a golfer. But I tell you how much of an athlete he was, man. About 3 holes into it, that dude was striking some balls. I was like, you might need to take this up, man. So
yeah, he told us one time he can hit it, but he doesn't know where it's going. Apparently Stetson is a really good golfer, according to Jake Camarda. So
that's what I heard as well. Yep.
Yeah, I was down on the golf course in Blackshear playing golf the day that he transferred to whatever junior college he transferred to. Yeah, so I was on the golf course in Blackshear when that happened. So I thought it was kind of funny. I wanted to mention that to him today when we talked to him. Listen, it's going to be a long week, folks. It's going to be a long week. We will not be back with you tomorrow, but we will be back on Wednesday and Thursday. We're going to be answering mailbag questions on Wednesday. We
still have the special going on site.
What's that?
We still have the sign up.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, Cyber Monday through midnight tonight, guys. 75% off of an annual membership over at Dawgs 24/7. It averages out to $2.24 a month, and if you do the math real quick, 75% off means you get 9 months free.
Okay, so $2.24 a month. That's like that's a large coffee now.
Yeah, large coffee at McDonald's.
Yes.
That's like 4. That's you can drop 1 Starbucks and pocket $3 off of that. So you can save all sorts of money, but it's the best deal we offer every year. Come join us, come check us out. We're gonna have some stuff up later. I got an X's and O's coming tomorrow talking about Alabama's defense, and then it'll be Alabama's offense, and then we'll have some nuggets for you at the end of the week. It'll be in the notebook, recruiting stuff. Rusty's got dog treats coming tomorrow morning, I believe it is.
Yep.
So yeah, plenty of stuff, man. Come see us. Come join us.
Kyle Morrow says small quarterbacks get the job done. Both quarterbacks probably 5'10" and a half in that SEC championship. You know what I mean? Like this says a lot about where the game is. But both of these guys are been ultra successful this year.
I tell you what, though, if Stetson is able to lead Georgia to a national championship, that's 2 quarterbacks, Rusty, from South Georgia, from deep South Georgia. One of them completed one pass in the national championship game. And if Stetson's able to do it, he started his career as a walk-on. So kind of some storybook type stuff there that Georgia would have a chance to.
I don't think Buck Belue's paid for a round of golf in 40 years.
Stetson won't either, dude.
Stetson would definitely sign up in that crew.
Yeah, Stetson won't either. All right, guys, we're going to let you go here. Come back to us later this week, Wednesday. We'll be back doing Wednesday leans and mailbag, and we'll be doing our picks on Thursday. And then we'll be in Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Saturday to give you all the news. But for this episode of the Junkyard Dawgcast, I'm Jake Rowe with Dogs 24/7. He's Rusty Mansell from the same place. Y'all take it easy.